So I wrote it, so I'm just going to read it because that's going to work best for me. A family faith journey begins with two people who were shaped and molded through the years until they were ready to find one another and blend their stories. So I'll start with sharing my own. When I think about my faith, I recall it always being a big part of my life. I was born and raised in the same church that my parents attended in Senior Luther League, ultimately meeting there and getting married years later. My maternal grandparents ran the sound system at the church all my life, which meant that myself and my siblings wandered the halls before and after church for prep and cleanup. We found adventure in many of its hallways and stairways. My schedule became busy in high school, playing soccer for a local club and high school program. While the soccer field became a place of refuge, it was also a place that my faith held a powerful role. At that time in my life, I was driven to be the best athlete I could be, with goals of playing collegiately. Philippians 4:13 became my verse. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I wore a sweatband on my forearm with a verse drawn on. I would mark the goal with the sign of the cross prior to the start of each half, and I would say a prayer knowing that God was with me, and for that reason I was capable of anything. During those years, my faith was a flame that drove me to be like Christ, to love with all my heart, and to show kindness and leadership in any way that I could. I turned 18 and I sat in the pews of the church and heard the pastor talk about jail ministry. I was immediately called, even though I had never imagined myself going into the jails to do ministry. But there I was, 18 years old, clenching my Bible as I was buzzed into different sections of the jail. My nerves on high alert, my mind wondering what I had gotten myself into. Then I sat down and started leading Bible study. I shared about the power of the cross and the power that our King offers. The woman across the table looked at me with eyes empty yet big, as if everything that was being said was going straight to the soul. She stopped and she asked me a question that will forever ring in my ears. But can he love me? Regardless of the choices she had made that had gotten her to where she was. It felt like my soul had swelled as I looked at her, smiled, and had the gift of sharing with her that regardless of her past, she was loved child of God. It was from that day that I knew that these women would be as much a blessing to me as our Bible studies were for them. Fast forward to my college years, where I met Michael at CLU. I realized that I was being called into the mental health field. Jail ministry had made clear that God needed me to walk alongside others just as Christ would do, helping people lost in the darkness find a sense of light. So my journey shifted, and with that shift, my faith was tested. My life at home that for so long had seemed smooth began to crumble. A secret affair surfaced between my parents, and a divorce shook my family's roots. At this time, I also struggled with mental health challenges that at times seemed debilitating. It was at this time that I was confused. Why would marriage, a sacred bond, be able to be destroyed so easily? Why would God let it happen? Why would someone I trusted to be honest through and through lie, and for so long? It was at this time that God felt so far away. Between my personal battles and the battles of the ones I loved, I felt as if there was a 20-foot cement wall between myself and God, and when I tried to reach him, Satan had the back of my shirt. God was silent. Why was he silent? I leaned into my Nana Jan, a pastor and a grandma, who looked at me and said, "Don't you stop praying when it feels like he's silent. He hears you. It may feel like he's on the other side of that 20-foot wall, but he isn't. He's on top of it. And he hears you and he reaches for you." So I kept praying. I yelled at God. I cried to him, but I didn't stop seeking him. I was working through my challenges, seeking professional help for the things I couldn't manage on my own. I was in an MFT graduate program at the time at a seminary and attended a retreat where a quote rang through my ears the second I heard it. "When God is silent, his work is profound." As time passed and I learned about myself and realized who God was for me personally, I realized that quote couldn't be more accurate. While my faith had been aflame all my life, it took adversity and questioning God, yelling at God, that I learned what my faith was, who my God was. Not just who I was taught he was, but who I found him to be. Had it not been for those experiences, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. Now I'm going to share Michael's story. Michael grew up attending Bethlehem Lutheran Church. He had years in the church from preschool through high school, filled with youth ministry, attending conferences in Texas, Seattle, and Anaheim, playing his guitar at church services. When deciding college, he had the choice to be a free spirit at UC Santa Cruz or to follow the Holy Spirit at Cal Lutheran. He thought that attending a Lutheran university would help him continue to practice and show his faith. He attended one church service while at CLU and felt so isolated. When Michael sought community, he was saddened to find that the church community at the time was cliquey, never reaching out a hand to bring others in. In a place that was meant to be home, it felt very opposite, and for that reason, it wasn't the community he continued to seek out. Throughout his time at CLU, he attended church with my family and his family when school was out. After we married, we routinely attended Ascension, our home church, and a few years ago, we had the opportunity to purchase our home in Woodland Hills. After we moved here, it was important to find a church in the community. Our first visit to St. Luke's, there was an immediate feel of welcoming, something that had been missing in the past. As I said before, our story became one as Michael and I dated through our years at Cal Lutheran and married after about 6 years. Michael and I found power in our shared faith and childhood in the church. We took the frightening leap of having a child, questioning whether we were ready and whether we would do the job justice. We were blessed with Zachary, a spitting image of Michael, exactly what I had prayed for, with a goofy personality that was undoubtedly part me. We took a financial leap and moved to Woodland Hills, a community that was totally new. We asked the question, so what about church? The church I had known and loved was in Thousand Oaks, but was no longer the community in which we lived, and we wanted nothing more than for Zachary to be raised in a church where we were involved, in a community where he would grow and learn. So we started our search, trying a few places and landing on St. Luke's, a church in our own community and even better, our own neighborhood. We sat in the pews concerned that our at the time 2-year-old, who made a good amount of noise, may disrupt the service. My eye caught the pamphlet that spoke to St. Luke's being a child-friendly environment, and my nerves were calmed, but both our tendencies went to hush Zach as he had no understanding of his noise level. Pastor Janet literally stopped what she was doing to emphasize, you don't need to hush, let him be who he is, and all I heard was let go and bring who you are, we accept it all. While we still feel the urge to hush here and there, or exit the church in a fury when Zach screeches in the middle of a sermon, we know that years of traditional approaches have drilled that into us. But regardless, we feel loved and at home as we all use the instruments, which Zach loves during songs, and feel accepted as members have approached and communicated how much they love that he is in our service. You all have made this mom and dad, stressed about meeting the expectations of God's house while wrangling a toddler, feel loved, accepted, and welcomed in a church that is becoming home for us. Thank you for the honor of being welcomed into the St. Luke's family. We're excited to see how our faith journey continues here, proudly repping our gold shirts, reminding us God works our hands. That's a motto we can get behind.